everybody. It's wonderful to be here with you, and it's wonderful to be hosting today's session. It's so amazing hosting Lunch and Learn. I've been a guest on this show and been a guest in this space, and Mucha just gave me the awesome privilege to be hosting Lunch and Learn today. I don't take it for granted. It's so awesome. My name is David O. Sijenyi, and I'm a certified coach. I am Lumina learning practitioner, working with individuals, working with people, but most of all, part of the PTS family, just driving EQ across different marketplace spaces. Well, this is episode 55 of our Lunch and Learn series, and June marks Men's Mental Health Month. And it's a timely reminder that mental well being matters for everybody. As a man, this has been something that has been very close to my heart. Now, many men continue to face pressure to stay strong, stay silent, and even carry challenges alone, often at the expense of their mental and emotional health. In this particular EQ Lunch and Learn, we'll explore how emotional intelligence can actually help you create the awareness, the language, the psychological safety that is needed for men to speak openly, seeking support and to thrive. Now, I know we don't just have men in the room, but we have those that support men, that believe in men, that believe in the value that men bring to society. Now, we'll also be discussing the important role that colleagues, leaders, friends, and family members play in creating environments where men feel seen, heard, and supported without judgment. Now, if you know someone who's not already logged on, just reach out to them, share this on your social media platforms, and let people know that we are started and the session is on. Now, how will this session help you? It will help you understand some of the unique challenges that affect men's mental well being. It will also explore the EQ tools, the emotional intelligence tools that support self awareness, emotional expression, and resilience. It will also help you learn practical ways to foster psychological safety and supportive conversations. And lastly, it will help you identify how we can all contribute to breaking the silence around men's mental health. Now, as a facilitator and as a trainer, I know, and as a coach as well, I know that that is only our perspective of what the learning is going to be for you. But my hope is that whatever you take out of this, that it will be valuable and useful. Now, join us today as we explore how small intentional actions can actually create safer spaces, stronger connections, and better well-being for everyone. And joining me is an amazing bench of panelists, and I'll be inviting them right now. I have Mucha Mlingo. Mucha, if you're there, oh, karibu sana, always smiling, looking amazing. I have, and let me just introduce Mucha, then I'll introduce the others as they come. So Mucha is an emotional intelligence practitioner. She's a coach, she's a facilitator, and she's dedicated to transforming leadership across organizations by helping individuals and teams develop greater self-awareness, greater resilience, and greater performance. As a 6 second certified master trainer, she designs and delivers impactful learning experiences that blend theory with practical application, enabling leaders to grow through reflection, insight, and action. Now, wherever you are, you know what that looks like. She's also the founder and managing director at PTS Africa. She's a Pan-African People Development Consultant, which is a Pan-African People Development Consultancy that uses emotional intelligence as a foundation for leadership development. PTS also is involved in organizational well-being and sustainable performance, and Mucha's work spans facilitation, coaching, leadership development, change management, strategic planning, and critical thinking across the continent. She's passionate about building psychologically safe and thriving workplaces. She partners with organizations to embed emotional intelligence into leadership culture and drive meaningful, lasting change. And beyond that, she mentors young people in her community and church and enjoys reading, exploring music through the saxophone, hiking, and spending time in nature with family. Good people. Mucha's quote is, to learn more, connect with her on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mucha. My next guest,
Thank you. Thank you.
Mucha,
Like that bio was long. I was like, hey, okay, thank you, but
where,
thank you.
where I had to take a breath. But Karibu Sana, it's
Asante.
wonderful to have you here and
Asante.
to be hosting this amazing space that you've convened for us. Next is Wycliffe. And Wycliffe Osoro. I don't know if he's there. Wycliffe, you can come out now. Or like they say in home, you can come to the out now.
I am here. Allow me out.
Awesome. So Wycliffe is actually the head of HR at Africa at Swissport and is a seasoned HR executive. He has over 20 years of experience and is actually certified FIHRM. He's passionate about creating workplaces where people can thrive, and he has spent his career helping organizations build strong cultures, develop leaders, and navigate change with empathy and purpose. He believes that high performance and well being go hand in hand, and that psychological safety is essential for individuals and teams to succeed. Through his work across diverse industries and multicultural environments, he has championed conversations on leadership, emotional intelligence, employee experience, and the human side of work, which is becoming a big deal in this generation that we are in. His personal purpose is simple: making a difference by helping people bring their best selves to work and create spaces where they feel valued, heard, and supported. His quote: "When men break the silence, they do not lose their strength, and they discover a stronger version of their silence." Come on now, let's appreciate Wycliffe. Karibu
Thank
Sana,
you.
Wycliffe.
Thank you.
You can connect with him on LinkedIn at Wycliffe Osoro. Awesome. I can't wait to hear the conversations that we're going to have. And guess who else we have in studio today? We have Peter. And Peter is Peter Odhiambo. We actually share a name, by the way, Peter. If they didn't tell you, Odhiambo is one of my names. And Peter Odhiambo Koth is a leader. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Hi David. Hi Mucha. Hi Wycliffe.
Karibu,
How are you
Hey,
guys?
Peter, welcome.
Karibu Sana.
Welcome.
Karibu Sana. So Peter Odhiambo Koth is a leader who specializes in human-centered design and customer experience and corporate wellness. As a medical and client experience manager at Viva 365 Insurance Brokers, which is a part of Plutchik Group, he changes complex health insurance interactions into smooth, holistic, and caring journeys that build client trust and improve operations. Who better talk about men's mental wellness? He's a passionate supporter of overall well-being, and he promotes the blending of mental, physical, and emotional health in the workplace to encourage sustained performance and business growth. Now, he has a strong background in marketing management and customer experience, and with his training as an international certified personal trainer, IPTA, he combines data driven approaches with psychological insights to create resilient, high performing teams. As a member of ICX Kenya, Peter is now enhancing his skill sets in counseling psychology while working towards the CCXP, which is Certified Customer Experience Professional Certification. And he offers a unique multidisciplinary view that sees preventive health and great client experiences as key factors for productivity and lasting success for organizations. His quote: we suffer more when an imagination, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And this is a quote from Seneca, letters from a stoic. Wow, what an amazing panel! What an amazing panel. These guests, you guys have such great experience. And as we have these conversations, for you who are watching us on air, feel free to engage with us in the chat. Feel free to chat us up, and we'll be more than glad to capture some of the things that you are saying. Are you ready, people? So, for our opening question, For our opening question, and this will be a question to all the panelists, we'll be setting the tone on just making mental health relatable. When you think about men's well-being in today's world of work, what is one challenge that men face that is often overlooked or misunderstood? And probably we'll give the lady in the room the opportunity to start us off.
Thank you very much for allowing me to kick off the session. I think that, and obviously I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who has interacted with men, someone who has worked with men, especially men in leadership roles. And I think there's a number of challenges that men face that are often overlooked and misunderstood. Excuse me. I think that one is the fact that, when we look at men, we put or we ascribe to them, certain positions or certain characteristics that come as part of their socialization, right? And I think that this goes a long way into impacting how men are perceived, and it really is a challenge that they face, right? In the sense that they are socialized in a particular way. Often men are made to feel that they must be strong, capable, and in control. And what this looks like has been distorted over time, right? The perception of what being strong, capable, and in control is. And I think for me, that's one of the, the biggest challenges that men face in the world of work. And to be honest, it goes beyond the world of work in terms of their lives. And it is something that is often overlooked. And I think the issue isn't that men shouldn't be strong, capable, and in control. The issue is how we define those things. And that's what's caused a lot of silence. That's what's caused a lot of men to feel like they must project this perceived, strength. And it then means that they do not have the space to acknowledge uncertainty, to acknowledge stress, to acknowledge loneliness or emotional struggle. And many men then learn to manage difficulties privately rather than seek support openly. And so the issue here is how we are defining what strength is, how we are defining what capable is, and how we are defining what in control is. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges from my perspective that men face that is overlooked and misunderstood both by the men themselves and by those of us who interact with them.
You're so right, Mucha. I mean, being a man myself, every time I would like to consider myself one of those really vulnerable and open men, but I've found myself sometimes having a conflict right after sharing whatever I've shared. I'm like, should I have done that? And sometimes you can see it in people's faces where they're not sure how to relate or how to engage with that vulnerability. And very interesting. So let's go to Wycliffe. Wycliffe, you have been a HR practitioner, of course, leading both men and women. What's your perspective on this question?
So my perspective on this question is very interesting, almost pretty much aligned to what Mucha has talked about. So traditionally, a man was seen as what you would define as a stoic provider. Someone who is unshakable, someone who is silent, and then they're performing at work and, delivering what it is that they need to deliver. So that is the traditional structure of what a man is expected to do. And they're just very purely output driven to be able to deliver on the tasks that they need to do. But the demands of today have come up with a different layer. And the layer is that these people, the men, need to be vulnerable. They need to, have empathy. They need to collaborate with people. So it's bringing into place what you may define as a structural paradox, because as a man, you expect to, deliver, not speak about it, focus, function. But then now you're being forced to, be vulnerable, collaborate with others. So what then that does is that it gets the men to be on this mode where they're always on and really trying to provide and do their work. And it leads to what I may define as, performative resilience, where you're just focused on delivering on what it is that you need to deliver, and put on this strange, space where you also need to be vulnerable, and they are very complex. Sort of, if you want to define it, it's sort of like there's a structure, and think of it like a very, this is old hardware that exists and has now received a massive software upgrade, but is supposed to exist within the old hardware that is there. So just think of it like a computer that now the fans are working overtime to deliver this emotional, space, collaboration, vulnerability, and yet it's the old hardware that's there. So it's really working overtime. So this is what is happening in the background for men, that you're required to deliver, but then you're required to now do this in this very strange space that is not how you grew up. To know that a man just delivers, you keep quiet about it, you focus on delivering, you're always on and providing, and yet now there's this strange software that has been loaded that you need to now operate under. So I think that's what is, the challenge that men are facing, and it's really misunderstood that really these guys are going through a lot. There's what we may call empathy 2.0 has been loaded, and it's this software that's really now, forcing people to operate in a way that they're not used to. Yes.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe. Thank you so much, Wycliffe. And I want to go to Peter now. And Peter, as you respond to this, you have had your own experience with mental wellness. Coming from that background, coming from that journey that you found yourself on, how do you respond to this conversation?
Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Mucha. I think it feels like I'm borrowing from Wycliffe, and it feels like I'm going to add a bit more on what he's just shared. One thing I'll tell you is I also struggled coming onto this space this morning. I had self-doubt, and in my head I was like, do I really want to be vulnerable in this space? If tomorrow I send my CV to Wycliffe, is he going to...
True stories.
This guy has suffered from something. Is he well enough to come work for me? So I think we are all stuck on that hangover of provider, strength, hangover of my dad used to do it this way, my grandfather used to do it this way, the people who came before them used to do it a certain way. And the baseline for manhood at that period was provision. They could provide for their families. They looked strong. And again, alluding to where Wycliffe has left off, we have had a massive upgrade in our software. We came from a place where we were communicating in smoke signals. Men used to sit in groups and gather and have conversations over trauma or a brew or something, and they would share their stories there and then walk to their homes. But now we're in a space where that is not available. We only have these gadgets that we are working with. And these gadgets are ourselves also, from where I sit. So we've had a swift upgrade, and this upgrade now involves, yes, you're a provider, and we are happy you're providing. We are happy you're showing as if you're present. You are present. You are a present father. Most of our fathers never used to be present, but they used to provide, and we respected the fact that they provide. But now you're meant to also be a provider. You're meant to also show a bit of vulnerability. And at the same time, you're also meant to ask for help. So this iOS has been upgraded so quickly, and we are not catching up. And we are struggling with it even as men. And I think Mucha alluded to it earlier, saying men, we can be also our biggest enemies. but also internally, we are our own worst enemies. I think one of the things that I shared as my favorite quote was the power of our mind and the things that go in our minds. And we are slaying dragons every day. I'm assuming, since I work with Wycliffe in the same space, I should be driving exactly what he's driving. I should be living in the estate that he's living in. I should be slaying some dragons the same way he is. And it's all imaginary. And we're all assuming, since he's a man and I'm a man, we should be getting on the same level. But that's not how it works. I think in the previous conversation with Mucha and myself, David, I mentioned the struggle I had with my mental health. And one of the things that I was struggling with big time was looking around the room. And you're like, we graduated same class with this guy. Why is he driving a Mercedes? Why am I still on that matatu? Or I got better grades than this guy. Why does he have what I currently don't have? And you are busy fighting battles within that are not making sense. You're just fighting within yourself. You're ending up hurting yourself. You're ending up holding yourself accountable for things that are not even in your control. And you're forgetting of the one main thing. You are human and you are meant to be living. So when you're busy chasing everything else and pushing to achieve everything else, you're forgetting to live. And you're forgetting the achievements that you are achieving by just breathing on a daily. One thing that I like to look at different is, again, a story I was sharing with a friend the other day. It was to look at my life and I compare it to my dad. My dad was a soldier. He's stripped and all that. But the one time that I think took a shift in my life was seeing my dad shed a tear. And I realized, wow, oh, so the world can also weep. And people in my family will tell you mindset within our home was very different. There would be no hugs, there would be no open show of I appreciate you. But this is the first time ever I hugged that man. And from that day onwards, we have had banter. We converse about Man U, we converse about Chelsea, we converse about everything within, from nothing to everything. And there's just that shift where you realize this OS is just us to update it, and updating it doesn't take crazy book. It's just continuous steps to just try and improve and see what's happening in our space. So just in closing on that, it's misunderstood, grossly misunderstood that you have to provide and you are okay with that. It's okay to be okay. I know it's a cliche. David will call me out on that one. It's a cliche, but it's okay as a man also to ask for help. It's okay to look at it and be like, yo, I can't figure it out. This one is difficult for me. Someone come and help me. And that's where now the societal thing comes in. The best friend comes in. And it's just allowing yourself to be vulnerable, which is difficult when you look at it, but it's quite easy also.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Peter. I think you really gave it perspective. But as we transition, maybe just your mic seemed to have some static on it. Maybe just check on it and see if you can adjust it or maybe change something so that then we can hear you clearly. But that was really, really on point. Just there's so much going on. The demands on a man were already so many, and with time they've even gotten worse. Not only are you competing with other men, but also finding yourself competing with women instead, and as well, and just the pressure. I found myself asking, what is this person doing when I'm looking at this person in front of me with this sleek brand new KD latest something and serious SV, and I'm wondering, what is this person doing that I'm not in this neighborhood some time back? And as far as I was concerned, there were no longer pieces of land bigger than 1 acre available for people to live on. All those had been turned to huge apartment complexes. Then I was seeing these properties 5 acres, 10 acres with trees in them. I'm like, what are these people doing that I'm not doing and that I do not know? At this point, we just want to welcome you, all the people joining us online. We're so glad that you could be able to be part of this conversation as we talk about mental wellness for men, especially in this June episode of EQ Lunch and Learn. And we're having some honest conversations about about the mental space for men. And we want you to be part of this conversation. You can give your comments in the chat. You can share with us how this conversation is resonating for you. You can ask questions and put them in the chat, and we'll be more than glad to acknowledge them. Please do say hi and let us know where you are joining us back. I think I saw Samuel Karaoke, Karibu Sana. Welcome, Samuel, joining us from, I think I'd seen where Samuel was joining us from a little early. Samuel joining us from Nairobi, and I think I can't see if there was anyone else who had indicated where they're joining us from. So please put this in the chat, and we'll be more than glad to acknowledge you as we go along. Peter has really positioned us in a very good place for the continuation of this conversation. And just also to know, just put in any feedback in the chat as we continue with the session. One of the feedback I'd like you to share with us is, what topics would you love for us to cover in future conversations? You can put those in the chat, and we'll be more than glad to have you to capture those for future conversations. So Peter has really concluded for us at a good place when he talked about just the experiences men are going through, the shift in software, but also the kind of support. I think for me, what stood out for me is how you hugged your dad, and that shifted the relationship that you had. I want to go back to Wycliffe. Wycliffe, from a HR perspective, how does the expectation for men to always appear strong or resilient show up in workplace culture?
Okay, so what happens is when men are expected to appear strong, I think I'd sort of alluded to that, they focus now on performance, and they really want to be able to achieve the things that they have been assigned to achieve. So this then shows up in interesting ways. So there are people who would come up with, and it's just the presenteeism. Someone is at work, they're present but not present. So if you think about, say, if you're doing an online meeting, they're in the meeting, or if you have any sort of way to monitor who are the people who are online within your organization, you see them being online, you see them doing the work, but there's nothing that measures in terms of how are they actually feeling emotionally. Are they really present in terms of that? So that's one of the things that shows up. Then there's also how does this show up in the workplace? Men now focus on what I may refer to as toxic productivity. They're really focused on delivering. They would go over and above, work crazy 80-hour weeks to sort of deliver on their targets. And that's something that's really something that shows up with men during the workplace, and this drive for them to really appear that they're resilient. The other thing is the emotional disengagement. Someone is there, but they're withdrawn. They don't have emotional energy. Their creative energy is down. So that is something that also does show up. Another thing that may happen, and where men really appear to be strong, is that I would refer to it as silent attrition. The man is really working hard. He's delivering, like I've said, in terms of their productivity, and then all of a sudden someone quits. Quits when they're at the top of their performance, and you're wondering, okay, what's happening? Why did this person get to this level? So they abruptly resign, and that becomes a challenge. And then also another way that it does show up is in terms of interpersonal friction. And all of a sudden someone is yes, they're performing, they're doing all this, but then in a meeting, all of a sudden they're not collaborating well with others, or how they behave with, people who are reporting to them within their teams. That's also something that is there. So, and the challenge with this is, and because as men we're expected to, deliver and show that we're delivering, we don't have the space for vulnerability to just tell people that, what, I'm not doing well. And then, so instead of that, we must by now focusing more activity, because you fear that if you show that, then it will compromise on your professional credibility, whether you're going to get jobs. And I think Peter did allude to that before. If you are known to have had these challenges, then it's going to affect you in terms of your progression, your career progression, and whether you get considered for other roles that are bigger than what it is that you're doing. But I think what we end up hiding behind as men is really performing, so that there's no questions. No one asks you what's going on, because you're really delivering, and that's a challenge that we face from a HR perspective.
Wow, Wycliffe, thank you so much for really unpacking that for us. I think you've given us some 3 comments there that I'll probably ask you to come back. I got the toxic performance. I'm not sure whether it was sudden attrition or what that was, and then the third one I completely missed. Maybe you can just remind us so that we capture those.
About emotional disengagement.
Emotionally disengaged.
Okay.
And my
yes,
panelists,
and also the masking also is tied with the toxic productivity.
Toxic productivity, that was the word. Toxic productivity. And I want to free my panelists, by the way. Feel free to chime in if something really tickles you and you're like, I can't let that one pass. Feel free. So I just want to acknowledge a few people before I ask Mucha to come on with something interesting that I heard somewhere. So Precious and Charles from Nairobi, I see you there. Thank you so much. And Anthony as well, joining us from Nairobi. Charles is actually joining us from Mombasa. Thank you so much, Charles. I'm always curious to find out who's joining us from the farthest. So if you think you're joining us from the farthest, please let us know. You never know. There may be a prize for you. Just say. And of course, you're seeing some comments there. Precious says, mental health among Gen Z and how to manage pressure between building a better life for the future and being present to everyday acceleration. That is a possible topic for the days to come. And then Charles says, what about trust and loyalty? Charles, I don't know if you're able to unpack that a little more. Is that a question you're putting across for this session, or is that a long-term conversation as a topic you'd want us to cover? Now, somebody once said to me that men mature emotionally much later in life. We will not, I don't know whether Mucha is going to touch on that, Mucha. So subject right there, but probably something we need to pay attention to because of just that capacity to even recognize that I'm in trouble, that I'm having issues, and even put them in words. I think I've been in forums where the argument has been, can you guys can you use your words? I'm like, which words? I'm still formulating the words. So Mucha, maybe from an emotional intelligence perspective, why do many men find it difficult to express vulnerability or even seek support when they need it?
I think the biggest challenge that men face, and obviously this is, speaking as an outsider, as a non-man, but just based on the work that I've done with especially leaders, is really not because they lack emotions. There's no one who lacks emotions. Everyone has them. But because men have often been conditioned to manage their emotions in very specific ways, right? And this is what brings about this struggle with vulnerability. From a very young age, many boys receive messages, both directly and indirectly, that strength means being self-reliant. It means being composed and not showing what you're feeling. It means being in control, wrestling those emotions under your control. And over time, they often learn to suppress emotions. They suppress any fear they feel, any sadness, any disappointment or anxiety, because expressing it feels risky. Expressing it goes against the very grain of what being a strong man is. And I think we've talked about this software upgrade that we've mentioned repeatedly. And the challenge is that emotional intelligence is not about suppressing emotions. It's about being able to connect with them, recognize what they are, understand them, and manage them effectively. And so, as a result of their upbringing, many men have developed strong skills in perseverance and problem solving, but they've had fewer opportunities to build emotional literacy. The ability to identify what they're feeling, to name it, and to communicate it to others. I think work has been done also about, the amount of talking that men do. And I know we're generalizing when we say men this and women this, right? But what we know out there is that, they say that women need to express X number of words in a day in comparison to a significantly smaller amount that men do. And so because of just society, our upbringing, and nature, men begin at that disadvantage of not being able to express how they are feeling, not building that emotional literacy. When you think of the word literacy, literacy, and you think back to children who are, going into school, the idea is you build your vocabulary by being exposed to words. I remember that my kids, when they were younger, had each year were given words that they needed to become familiar with, words that they would then express and explain what they are. And the idea is we're building your literacy. And it's the same with our emotional literacy, right? The idea is we must build words to describe some of the things we are feeling. I see it with my sons, how are you feeling? Good, bad. It's like it's one word that is meant to describe so many different things. And so this is a challenge. In addition to this, there's also the emotional risk factor, right? So remember, the first is the emotional literacy. Many men struggle with not being able to easily identify what's happening internally and articulating it. And then the second, as has already been said, is the emotional risk factor. Vulnerability requires trust. And if past experiences have taught you that expressing emotions lead to judgment, rejection, or being perceived as weak, which is the case in many instances for men, then people are less likely to open up in the future. And so in emotional intelligence terms, the perceived cost of vulnerability outweighs the perceived benefit. Now, what I find encouraging is that this is changing. This software upgrade that we talk about has caused a shift. Many men are recognizing that vulnerability and strength are not opposites. In fact, some of the strongest leaders I work with are those who have developed the self-awareness to acknowledge when they are struggling and the courage to ask for the support they need, and the emotional intelligence to create environments that allow others to do the same. So the goal is not for men to become overly emotional. The goal is for men to become emotionally aware, emotionally skilled, and emotionally connected. And this is what's healthier for us. And this is the gift that emotional intelligence gives by helping men just to connect better with themselves. And to be honest, that's not just for men. There are very many women who can speak 1,000 words, but still not describe what they are actually feeling, right? So emotional literacy is a skill that we all need to develop. But I think the upbringing of men has meant that they often start from a disadvantaged place.
Wow. As you're sharing that, Mucha, I've just found myself, and I'll be coming to you, gentlemen, to just share your experience on this beliefs, habits, and social expectations. As you're speaking, I just remembered growing up, some of the things you'd hear. You're among men, especially if you're as a younger man, you're among men, so be quiet. You can't speak among men. You've not earned the right to speak among men. And sometimes you're really trying to share just what you're going through and what you're feeling. And I've had to be very deliberate with my son. First of all, when he arrived, I found myself very shocked at how much pressure I felt when he arrived, because my first two kids are daughters, are girls, and so when they came, these ones I can handle. But when my son arrived, I remember being obviously panicked for what was I supposed to do with this. And I could remember in the good book when Eve proclaims, God has given me the opportunity to create a man What am I supposed to do with this? And I remember just thinking to myself, am I encouraging him? Am I helping him? Or am I actually taking away value from him? So my son is 8 now, and the man can't stop talking. He's asking questions about this and the other, and he's giving comments, opinions, and whatever. And I remember when I was his age, and how giving my comments and opinion was actually frowned upon. I don't know, Peter, I see you smiling. What are your thoughts? What thoughts are going through your mind right now as you think about this? Peter, there seems to be a delay with your audio. All right,
Maybe
I think
as
you're
he's
on now.
getting that through. This
Sure.
is Wycliffe. I was saying maybe as he's getting that through because he needs to sort of sort his mic. I think it's
Yes.
very interesting. You spoke at something that I also connected with, having 2 girls and then a boy coming in. You almost think that, what, there's girls, they're fine, you know how to take care of girls, their mother is there. But then when the boy comes in and you're thinking, okay, how do I get him to be better than me, because I think that's really the challenge. And the things that I do, is he looking up to me, and is he watching every move that I make to be able to determine who is going to become in the future? So that was that's an interesting analogy, and the challenges that we do face as men, and how you want to model the best for your son. But I think it's quite a bit of a challenge, and you want to pick the good that your father did, drop the bad that you think your father did, and then be able to bring up a man who's going to be better than you. Yeah. So I don't know if Peter would probably want to comment. Yeah.
Peter, are you on now? We couldn't hear you earlier. So it seems to be something with your bandwidth or your mic. Something you adjusted may have interfered with your mic. But maybe as you sort that. So we still can't hear you. We can see you speaking, but we can't hear you, Peter. Awesome. So Charles Masinde from Mombasa says, when I mentioned trust and loyalty, I meant maybe sometimes you may be struggling with something and you probably shared the matter with a colleague in the workplace. Then that issue can be weaponized or has been weaponized and used to demoralize your performance, thus making the man not say anything because now he has seen trust and loyalty is an issue even with the management. And I hope you all understand. Oh yes, Charles, we do understand. It is one of the greatest things. Maybe Mucha, you can comment about this. No, actually, before Mucha comments, Wycliffe, you're in HR, and maybe you could speak into this from closer home, where people are like, "Hey, management, we can't trust you." We went and shared with HR and told them this and the other, and then now my issues have become everybody's issues. Talk to us, Wycliffe.
No, I think what Charles is saying, I do recognize that is a challenge, and it's all about the organization culture and the right culture that you're trying to build, and a culture where that is you share your information and then this comes out, is not a culture that's building what we are referring to a lot about today as psychological safety. If I'm able to share my vulnerabilities and yet this then does go out, then it just doesn't model the right culture. So I think it's unfortunate when that does happen, and it needs to be addressed. I think as an individual, you need to call out and go and have the conversation with whoever you had the conversation with, and just let them know that you are aware that this came out, and it did not that was not the intention that you had. So addressing that directly with whoever had leaked that information would be something that you need to do to be able to handle that situation. So as an organization, I think there's many other things that you can be able to do, and that goes from a HR space in terms of surveys and all types of engagements to get to know, are people really psychologically safe within the organization to share what it is that they would want to share, and then be able to address it. And when those matters do come to us in HR, we're able to address them. And I know it does happen. I've dealt with such situations, but you then pick it up with the managers and just be very frank about it. And I think what I would model is really also tell the individual, would you like what you share with me, especially say if it's a senior manager, to be out there with the rest of the people? So I think it's just do unto others as you would like done unto you is a conversation that I would be having with any leader or any individual in the organization who goes ahead and shares information that was shared in confidence.
Yeah. Great stuff, Wycliffe. As a certified coach, that's a big deal. Confidentiality is a big deal in the work that we do. Mucha, you're a practitioner in the EQ space, and you work with people. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is a really good point, a really good and important concern that you've raised, Charles. I think if someone has experienced having their struggles used against them, whether by a colleague, a manager, or an organization, it makes sense that you become guarded, right? Trust is built on psychological safety, and when that safety is absent, vulnerability becomes dangerous. It feels dangerous. I think what we then need to reflect on is the idea that vulnerability is made up of two things, or it requires two things. It requires self-awareness, so knowing what you're experiencing and acknowledging it, but it also requires judgment. So choosing the right person, the right place, and the right level of disclosure. And so the real question is not how do I stay vulnerable in where you've had your fingers burned, but how do I stay open without becoming unsafe? So, my view is that we should never allow misuse of trust by a few people to convince us that we must carry everything alone. The answer is not to stop being vulnerable. Rather, it's becoming wiser about where we place our trust whilst continuing to build relationships and, look for spaces where vulnerability is met with respect rather than judgment. I do think that we also need to be able to call out people who behave like that, who behave badly, because, that's inappropriate. If I've shared something in confidence, especially if it's HR, if I've shared something in confidence with you, it is inappropriate if that then becomes public knowledge. And so I think that the other thing that we need to do more of is call each other out. I find that in many organizations, we allow bad behavior and bullying to some extent to continue without calling it out. So I think we can also be brave enough and courageous enough to call it out, because what that does is it creates a safe space for others to be able to share as well. So I think for men, one of the bravest acts of emotional intelligence is choosing connection despite the risk, while exercising discernment about who has earned access to your story. And then sometimes it's not necessarily important to share all the details, right? So it could be that, you don't feel safe enough to go into the depth of what it is, but you do need to, share something. Then it could just be, I'm going through a difficult period at the moment. I'm not at my best today, that kind of thing. And so you are not necessarily giving the details. But I do think then as a leader, it's important that you are intentional about creating this space and guarding it very jealously. So if you're leading a team and it turns out that there are those who are, deriding someone who is being vulnerable, or where someone has shared confidential information, they've shared it out, then as a leader, you need to come down hard on that so that you show evidence that, that's not something that you will entertain, so that you can create that safe space.
Amazing. Peter, it's great to have you back. Just I'll be checking your audio in a short while. But Susan W. Chege, on the conversation about raising boys, talks about that's an interesting insight on raising a good man who will thrive even when it comes to the area of mental wellness. And that's directed at Mucha. What can you say about this for moms of boys? I think when we spoke with Wycliffe, we talked about how fathers get suddenly overwhelmed. But what did you say for moms of boys? Peter, I don't know whether you have any insights of that. How should moms of boys encourage them? And I know you talked about your story with your dad, but how do you encourage moms of boys?
I'm not sure. It looks like Peter's still having challenges. I think there's a lag because it looks like he's unmuted. Peter, can you hear us? Are you able to speak?
There is definitely a lag.
Yeah, there's an issue.
And a challenge with your audio, Peter. So, Peter, maybe if you can just see how to sort out your audio, because we can see you speaking, but we can't hear you.
Yeah. And that's such a shame. I know that you have some amazing insights, Peter. So if you are able to, maybe if you exit and then try and log on again, it might help. I can jump in my thoughts in response to Susan as hopefully Peter is able to sort out his tech. You know, it's one of the things that's amazing about technology is it allows us to connect across oceans, but it can be so frustrating when it's not working, right? I think that as a mom raising two boys herself, this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I'm a mother of boys. I don't have any daughters. One of the most important things we can do as mothers is to teach our sons that strength and emotional awareness can coexist. Too often, boys receive the message that being a man means being tough, independent, and unaffected. But thriving in today's world, requires something different. It requires the ability to understand themselves, to manage their emotions effectively, to build healthy relationships, and to ask for help when they need it. And so maybe three things that I would encourage moms to focus on. I think first, moms, help your boys to build an emotional vocabulary. Many boys learn how to express anger, but not necessarily disappointment, fear, embarrassment, loneliness, or anxiety. When we help them to name their emotions, we help them to manage them. Because by naming it, you tame it. So I think that's the first thing. Build emotional vocabulary. And, to be fair, this is not just something for boys. I think equally for our daughters, but more so because generally our boys don't seem to be able to express how they feel with a large number of words. Like I said, how are you doing? Good. How was that? Fine. Okay. It's like they use like less than 5 words to describe everything. So the first is build emotional vocabulary. The second is to model vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness. Monkey see, monkey do, I think is what they say. Our children learn as much from what we do as from what we say. So when they see healthy emotional expression, honest conversations, and appropriate help seeking, they learn that being human is not something to hide. And I think as mothers, we also need to encourage the fathers to actually demonstrate this, because what we don't want is our boys to think that, oh, well, yeah, it's mom, she's a woman, so that's why she does that. That's why she expresses, how she's feeling. That's why she, can share and be vulnerable. And then lastly, make connection more important than performance. Many boys grow up feeling that they are valued primarily for what they achieve. We want them to know that they are valued for who they are. When children feel accepted, beyond their performance, they develop confidence to speak up when they're struggling. I think ultimately the greatest gift we can give our sons is the assurance that they never have to choose between being a good man and being a whole human being. Men who thrive are not the ones who never struggle. They are the ones who know how to recognize that they are struggling, talk about those struggles, and seek support when they need it. That's emotional intelligence in action.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Susan, for that question, because then you've milked out some great insights, which will stay with me for a very long time. Wycliffe, I saw you starting to think about what Mucha was saying. As you think about that, I want you to also talk about practical things as we now look at the application of this understanding and this appreciation of mental wellness for men. What is one practical thing that organizations can do to create psychologically safe environments where men feel comfortable to speak up?
So I think if you'd allow me, I'll want to talk about two things, but I can just speak. One of the things that organizations can do to create, a safe space for men is what I would ask the leaders and men who are leaders to do what would refer to as vulnerability signaling. This means that you should be able to speak about, situations that are tough to you and be able to model that. So one of the things is that, like, say, for example, you are going through a very difficult period at work, and you've been stressed. You've put in a lot of effort to this project that's working, and the team have been able to deliver. But at the end of this, you're feeling extremely exhausted, and you want time to disconnect and be able to just overcome that very tough period that has been there. So one of the things that you can then do as a leader is it and say, you know what, team, we've gone through this very difficult period. We're delivering on this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off maybe on Friday afternoon and spend time with my family to be able to just, take my mind away from this very difficult, period that we've been through, or this very high performance period that we've been through. And I'd expect all of you to do the same, to be able to, step aside and, be able to just decompress from what has been happening. So the moment you do that, you are giving people the opportunity for them to say, you know what, it's actually okay when I'm feeling overwhelmed to speak about it, and to then say that I can be able to now, decompress following this period. But if you don't do that, then it becomes very difficult because people will just be looking at you and thinking that, you're able to deliver this amazing thing and there's nothing that you can do. But I think maybe the other thing that maybe I can speak about it a little bit later, but I think I was going to just say, really, as leaders, we need to go deeper in asking what I would call the second question, because we always ask people, how are you doing? And people will say, I'm good. Beyond, we need to ask a further question and don't, because performance is really important for men, just encourage them and tell them, yes, you're doing a fantastic job, you're delivering very well on this project, but how really are you feeling underneath that? What are you feeling as we're doing this, so that you can be able to get them to open up. Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to get the men to open up. So those two tools, I think, are what you can use: the vulnerability signaling, and then also just asking the second question that is a deeper layer to beyond I am doing well or I am fine.
Great. Vulnerability signaling. I'm liking the vocabulary you're giving us today, Wycliffe. Really enjoying it. Charles Masinde has a question, and he's asking, does being an empathetic leader as a man affect the performance and well-being of a man? And I want to throw this question to Peter. Peter, welcome back. I hope your tech is behaving now. Maybe just give us an indication that you can hear us. I know there's a bit of a delay.
But it's like earlier we could hear him. I mean, there was a crackling, but we could at least hear what he's saying. And the crazy thing is he can hear us. But for some reason, Peter, we still can't hear you.
Yeah. Still a delay?
Oh, we can hear you now, at least. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah, interesting question, and I'll answer it with an example. Again, okay. I live and breathe EQ. I think I learned from Mucha from EQ1.
And maybe, Peter, as you answer, yes, you could also speak into this a practical, a mindset shift that has helped you or other men that you've observed become more open about their well-being?
Okay. I'll start with that past example that I was sharing that I had alluded to. Last year, there's an account I was chasing at Viva, and I did everything right. Did the presentations right, the slides were okay, shared with the HRs, sat into meetings with teams in Congo, teams in Nigeria, and the likes. And these guys told me, you've served us well, and this one looks very good. Then second meeting, they tell me, eliminate this underwriter, let's work with this one. And then they went silent. Then you get a call from this underwriter who they told you eliminate, and the client tells you, and the underwriter tells you, the client came to us directly. Thank you for giving us business. And I was shattered because I felt like I had done my best.
Who are these people?
I won't mention their name.
Wow. No. Yeah, just a rhetorical question.
I think for once in once in my life was felt a tear in my eyes. I felt I had done my best count. And my boss, who sits in a corner not far from me, came to my desk and played a video of an animation he was watching with the daughter over the weekend. And the animation was saying, it's going to be okay. It is okay. And with that, I had a shift in my perspective about this is my boss. No, this is someone I'm going to war with. He's seen me at my worst, and he's come to me and not come to ask, why didn't you close this account? He's come in the most human form you can imagine. He's like, yes, I listened to this with my daughter. I didn't know that it was going to affect you today, but listen to it. And that basically shifts your mindset in terms of how you look at the space. These are all humans. These are all humans. They are performing, yes, and they're not looking at your performance. They are looking at your performance as a human. And you realize, wow, to me, that was a big one. But if I can just relate that to a moment in my life or a moment that shaped everything and my outlook in life, I think I'd mentioned to Mucha, David, you're aware, I like to read a lot about our stoic guys. As much as there's that macho side and reminder that we are men and we go to war and we bloody our swords and we come out and we are victorious, there's that aspect of a reminder of the human in us. And I love reading about Emperor Marcus Aurelius. And the main thing that I got from him is the slaves sat behind him, reminding him, yes, you've conquered the world. Yes, you've liberated people. Yes, you've done all this, but you're still a human being. Go back into your little tent and remind yourself you're human. You're not a god. You're a human being. You will be afflicted by these things. You will encounter a loss. You will encounter a death. You will encounter something that will shake you to the core. But you shouldn't allow that to change your human aspect. And it's amazing what I'm seeing the likes of Wycliffe doing within their spaces, because HR used to be, you call me to third floor, I know I'm going home. But now I know I can actually come to HR and we'd be like, how was the football match over the weekend? And the paradigm must shift. People and culture has become more of us. They truly understand what human functionality is all about. And that's the direction that I feel if we do go to at the end of the day, just a reminder of human. We are human. And that's the one thing that I'd like to leave that chat with David.
Wow, Peter, as you've shared that, you almost made me shed a tear now, as you shared just what your boss did. That's so human, and I think it just brings us to what I want to throw to Mucha, the emotional intelligence tools or practical or practices that can actually help men better understand and express what they are feeling.
Goodness, just as you asked me the question, I went into a coughing fit. I'm fighting a Homa here. And I have been drinking water and trying to make sure that try and kind of fight off this this cold. I think that there are many things that we can do to build greater, self-awareness and enhance our emotional literacy. I will share, some things that have really worked, or something that's worked for me. And it's just this idea of intentionally checking in with yourself. The truth of the matter is that we operate often on autopilot. And the brain loves autopilot because it makes sense. It conserves energy, right? If you consider the amount of things the brain needs to do, it makes sense to be on autopilot. But the danger with autopilot is that we are not stopping to truly connect with ourselves and truly connect with how we feel. So my recommendation would be to do self-reflections as a regular practice. And so that just means at the end of your day, stopping to reflect on what the day has been like, not in terms of your outputs, but in terms of how you navigated the day and what showed up during the course of the day. And as you pay attention, so the idea is you take a minute. You can take 5 minutes, you can make it 10. If you want to stretch it, you can make it 15. So it doesn't have to be something that requires an hour of your time. But the idea is just to pause. I find it's easy to close your eyes and just really replay your day. And then just stop where you notice where there was a blip on the radar. And then sit with it and ask yourself what truly happened. And I think the idea is to ask yourself, why, I think there's the 5 whys. Right? So to ask yourself why 5 times so that you go deeper, so that you're truly interrogating what it is that came up and why it came up. And the why is not from a place of judgment. It's from a place of curiosity. And so as we do that and stop and pause, what actually happens is we build the muscle of noticing. And what you then find is by virtue of self-reflecting after the fact, as a regular practice, you actually start to notice in the moment. You actually start to notice those blips on your emotional radar in the moment, and you can actually pause in that moment and connect with what's going on rather than just responding on autopilot. And so the idea is at the end of your day, just take a few minutes to reflect on the day, how the day was, how you showed up. So we're not talking about your deliverables, we're not talking about the things you achieved. How did I show up? And as you reflect on the day, notice where perhaps your emotional temperature went up, where there were blips on the radar, and ask yourself why. And as you answer that question, ask yourself why again, and why again. And the idea is just to get into the habit of digging deeper. And like I said, as you do that, you will find that you start noticing in the moment because you're starting to build the muscle of coming off autopilot and paying attention. And it's just about expanding our emotional vocabulary. Maybe one thing I would also add is a very quick and easy thing is to challenge yourself. When I was in high school, we had a really strict English teacher. And at the beginning of your year, when he taught you, he'd give you a list of names that were not allowed to be used, words that were not allowed to be used. So you couldn't use words like fine and good. That's another practice that you can introduce, right? Where as you check in with yourself, there are certain words that are banned from your vocabulary so that it forces you to look for other words. A really great tool is found on the 6 Seconds website. So 6 Seconds and 6 Seconds have looked at the Plutchik wheel of emotions. So Plutchik was a psychologist, and he, looked at emotions and developed what we call a wheel of emotions. It's a graphic description to describe how emotions are related. And through years of studying emotions, he proposed that there are 8 primary emotions that were the foundation for all other emotions. And so this Plutchik wheel is really cool because what it does is it helps you to identify what the emotion is that you might be feeling, and it gives you a description of what that emotion could be. So that's something that could also help to build that emotional literacy. So if you go to the 6 Seconds website, that's the number 6 seconds.org, and then just search for Plutchik, Wheel of Emotions. You will find it there, and you can kind of play around with that. And it helps to kind of build your emotional literacy. So yeah, those are some ideas.
Amazing, which it's always wonderful just listening to your insights and just your understanding of emotional intelligence. One of the things that happened to me this last week, actually, I sat down with a friend of mine who's known me since I was a teenager. And she said to me, we're just talking and catching up on the number of years that I've gone back. And she said to me, David, you burnt out at 17. Now, this was coming on the backdrop of me saying that earlier this year, I felt like a portion of my mind, I remember it was during a period of prayer and rest, and I felt like a portion of my mind that has been inaccessible to me, and I didn't even know it was there. You know, like when you have water in your ears and then you don't know, then at some point it just opens and you're like, oh, I didn't realize it. I thought I could hear, but now I can hear better. It felt like I thought I could think, but now I can think clearly. And it felt like suddenly I was able to solve some problems I'd been struggling with for a long time. And when I shared this with her, she said, but dude, you burned out when you were 17. I remember that really resonated because I remember pausing and thinking, I feel like I feel like I've been running since I was 17. And that's just around the time I began to understand who I was and what I wanted to do and what society looked like for me. And Wycliffe, you're talking about pressure. I believe that's when the pressure started. I was serving in church. I was preparing for exams, my Form 4 exams. I was busy. And I don't remember not being busy since then. And it's like this year, suddenly I woke up to that reality and began to think about what my life was and where it was leading. And I want to connect this with something that I'm going to be asking Peter. But before I ask Peter this question, I just want to give our audience a chance to give us some, to just respond to this on a scale of 1 to 5. How valuable has the content today been for you? On a scale of 1 to 5, how valuable is the content that we are talking about today? How valuable has it been for you? With 5 being extremely valuable and 1 being very little or no value really. It was great to be here. So how valuable has the content today been for you? As you think about that, Peter, for a man who feels pressure to always have everything under control, and that has been my life for a long time, feeling pressure to always being under control, what is one small step that he can take this week to prioritize his well-being? Over to you, Peter.
Good question, David. For me, what I have found to work, it's not like I have done it forever. It's something I'm also picking up and I'm also learning. I'm taking a 5-minute control audit. And what I'm doing is I have 2 columns in my life. The first column is in my control. The other column is not in my control. So what goes into the column of in my control is, do I have a deadline in terms of what I'm meant to deliver today? My sleep pattern, do I have to do 10,000 steps? They go there. Not in my control, things like Nairobi traffic, they go there. My boss's mood, it goes on that column. The dollar exchange rate goes into that column. Then I now work my way through what's in my control. What's in my control, I spend at least 10 minutes on those items. If I want to do my 10,000 steps, I need to do that workout in the morning. I'll do that workout in the morning. If I am running late on a deadline, I see how to fast track on it. If I have to call a friend, I take those 10 minutes and call that friend. If I have to sit by myself, I take those 10 minutes and sit by myself and just think about my day. What's not in my control and what I cannot affect with my hands, I get it out of my head. It has no point sitting there, and I have no point thinking about why my colleagues are not happy or why my boss is not happy. That one is not in my control, unless it has something to do with me not delivering on a major KPI. Then I will think about it. So for me, that 5 minutes daily just helps me put perspective to my day. I do it in the morning, and then in the evening, I also go back and do that audit, and I try and just track and see what have I been able to look at. Something that I have also been able to implement, I think I was sharing with a colleague the other day, is we have lived life looking at it as my next big success, my next big car, but we also don't do hindsight where you look at things I've been able to achieve. Breathing alone is an achievement, and we don't even talk about it enough. Just being able to get out of that bed and showing up to that office is an achievement. So also tracking back and looking at how that day was. What good things did you do with yourself on that day? Gives you a bit of perspective about where you have come from and how far you've come. The last thing that I can also mention there is just being able to self-appreciate. I mean, we beat ourselves so bad, and the world out here is also beating you up so bad, and you're in there fighting yourself. The world is also fighting you. You don't take time to just appreciate yourself and be like, yeah, I survived that, or yes, I actually did that, which I feel like as humans, we don't do enough of. We don't do enough of just looking at ourselves and being like, yes, I've been able to do this. So, in terms of actionable steps, those are some of the items that I've been able to incorporate into my space, and just being able to sit within it as a human being and being able to understand that, yeah, um, sometimes you just appreciate the progress over perfection. You appreciate the little steps that you've made. And even if you stumbled forward, you were moving towards something. You didn't fall back on anything. So that would be my take, David.
Oh, amazing, amazing. The 5 minute control audit, 5 minute control audit. I love it so much. I have written it down. I am definitely going to be applying it later today. Speaking of the number 5, we're seeing quite a number of people saying that this content has been extremely valuable. In case you've just joined us and you're wondering, what is this 5 about? We are talking about how valuable this content today, the conversation today has been for us, where 5 is extremely valuable and 1 is very little or no value. And Anthony Mugo says, when can we get another lesson, especially on parenting and life work balance for men? Coming your way soon. Mucha is not one to hear this and just let it pass. Charles says 6 out of 5. I know it's extreme, but this content is very valuable and deep. Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you so much for that. Bringing it back to you, Wycliffe, for HR leaders, and these are HR leaders or leaders and professionals who want to better support men's well-being. What is one simple action that they can start implementing immediately? HR leaders and leaders listening to this, what is one action they can start to implement so that they can better support men's well-being? Over to you, Wycliffe.
Great. I think for me, I had alluded to this a little bit earlier on. I think supporting leadership and supporting men in leadership, I think, is really the powerful thing that we're going to do is around vulnerability and supporting leaders to speak about that and giving opportunities for leaders to be open and share about their struggles. Providing spaces where men can speak about, the mistakes that they have made, what it is that they have been able to do around that, the pressures that they face. I think that's something that's very important. Rather than, having, webinars, we really try and feel that webinars are the thing that, not to say that, I mean, this is almost a form of webinar, but I'm saying, in the organization, having people that people can reach out to and speak to, and forming sort of peer groups where men can be able to share. I think it's something that leaders can do and implement immediately. So it's around the culture that we then create, because culture is a very interesting thing, because culture is caught, it's not taught. So the things that the leaders do is what the rest of the organization is going to catch on. It's not what you teach in the organization. So I think modeling vulnerability for me is the biggest thing that you can do for men, because men need a safe space to be able for them to, open up and thrive and address the challenges that they are facing. So if we're not able to create that open space, then it's going to be a challenge to be able to address the issues. So I think I'd urge the HR leaders and even leaders in organizations to really have that as one of the ways that they can be able to do that. And start with yourselves. I mean, those in HR and also those in senior leadership in organizations. And there is something powerful about a man in leadership really sharing about the challenges that they're facing and what it is that they're doing. It really humanizes the leader, and people are then going to be able to, be comfortable enough to share and see if that if Wycliffe has gone through this and he's dealing with it, I can also be able to do it and deal with it. And it just shows that we are all human. I think that's something that's really, really, really important. Awesome. Allow me, I know there was a question that was asked and I felt that we did not answer the question, and I want to just quickly answer it. There was a question about the empathetic leader and does it really affect your performance and well-being as a man? And I think it does not. I think the fact that you are able to place yourself in someone else's shoes, I think really makes you come out as a trustworthy leader. And that means that people are going to, if I look at it, put discretionary effort to do better because they are working with someone who they can trust. So, and it also does help you understand your team better and help you get the best out of them. So I think that was something that I think Charles had asked that question, and I didn't want to let that slide.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Before we go to Mucha, I just want to, good facilitation of and moderation of sessions like this requires that I take a time check. We may overshoot our time by just a few minutes. Not our practice at PTS, but we may just overshoot by a few minutes. The conversation has been so interesting. And but just to let you know, we may just overshoot by a few minutes. And as we do so, I'll invite my panelists to begin to prepare their parting shot. And so Mucha, as you give your thoughts on how we can use EQ on a daily basis to practice an EQ practice that can help men become more self-aware and create space for honest conversations about their well-being. What would that be? As you give your parting shot as well.
All right. So this is a combined question, including my parting shot. I think that, for me, I'm going to focus on the idea of creating space, right? Because I think I talked about being self-aware when I shared the idea of, doing your regular self-reflection. So I think there I've spoken about that already. But I really want to talk about this idea of creating space, because I think this is just really critical, that as men, you become champions of creating space for honest conversations.
Yeah.
I want to borrow something that Wycliffe said earlier. I think one of the ways, I'm going to share three things that I think men can do. One of those is to ask that next question. So I think Wycliffe alluded to this, right? We typically ask people, how are you doing? And it ends there. And to be honest, we're asking how are you doing as you're kind of walking past a person. So even if they really wanted to tell you they're not doing great, they're not really going to tell you, right? So for me, the first, if we want to create these spaces, is ask people how they're doing and then ask the next question, right? So go a little deeper. Get into the habit of having deeper conversations. That's number one. Number two, I think, again, borrowing from now, I don't know if it was Wycliffe or Peter who mentioned, is modeling this idea that vulnerability and strength are not mutually exclusive. I can be vulnerable and strong, right? If strength is is how we are defining, what a man is. And like I said, when we started, that's probably where the challenge began, because we're saying men must be strong. What is strong? What does that mean, right? It's the same way that we say women are strong, and it allows women to keep taking nonsense because you're like, yeah, because I'm being strong. So I think we need to disrupt our definition. But let's put that aside for another day. It's really, recognizing that our definition of what strength is has become warped or is warped. And so we need to disrupt that. And one of the ways we disrupt that is by acting out what strength truly is. And so part of that is, being vulnerable, being willing to share when we are struggling. And look, the truth of the matter is, as if you are a leader, for example, your team expects you to have certain things under control. So when we talk about being vulnerable, we're not talking about, sharing to the extent where even the team itself is now demoralized because they feel like, oh gosh, we're being led by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. That's not what we're talking about. And that's the same for both men and women. But it is just being honest about, the fact that perhaps you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. And I like the example that was given earlier that, hey, it's been a crazy few weeks as we've been pushing towards meeting this deadline. I'm checking out. I'm taking a personal day so that I can reboot and recover. So I think that is also important. And then I think the last thing is, being intentional about checking in beyond the activity, right? So too often our conversations are all about tasks and deadlines and performance. Emotional intelligence invites us to start with a person. So it's about connecting at a personal level and being more intentional about connecting at a personal level. And what that does is it creates space for others, but it also creates space for you to connect with, that muscle of empathy, for example. So those are maybe the three things that I would share. And I think my parting shot is this: let's disrupt how we are defining strong. And I think that this is applicable both for men and women, but because today we're focusing on men, let's disrupt what strong looks like. Let's have conversations about what real strength is. Real strength is not, a lack of feeling. Real strength is not feeling as though you have to do everything and achieve everything. That's not strength. Strong men ask for help. Strong men recognize that they don't have to have all the answers. And I think for me, that is critical towards men's mental well-being. Let's disrupt how we are defining strong.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Mucha. Let's define how we are defining. Let's disrupt how we are defining strong. Peter, what would be your parting shot? If there's anything that you'd want people to remember about supporting men's well-being and creating psychological safety, what would it be?
David, interesting from Mucha, and I think I'd want to define strength in a little way. Start from the side where I'm looking at weakness. Weakness is us men hiding until we crash. Don't hide until you crash. Strength is saying I'm stuck even while you're moving, even when you're trying to move. Say I'm stuck. That is strength. A parting shot for the day is just from a living example and looking at, obviously not for the three of you up here, because I know you have embodied it. For my audience, if you were to write a book and give it to a stranger, would it change their lives? If your answer is no, good news is you have time to do it. You have time to work on yourself. You have time to share that story. If your answer is yes, keep on doing it. You're doing great.
Thank you so much for that, Peter. Wycliffe.
Yes, I think for me, just winding up is just understanding. We talk a lot about on this forums about emotional intelligence. And I think we just need to move it away from thinking that emotional intelligence is a soft skill, but look at it more like a hard skill. And it's the ultimate business of you would have, high performance discipline in an organization. And so in context of what we're talking about today, supporting mental health for men is not about lowering standards of professional excellence. It's about increasing our capacity to achieve the standards of professional excellence. So, and also to achieve sustainability within the business. So I think that is what will be my parting shot for today.
Amazing, 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 amazing. We've been seeing your feedback in the chat, and would be glad to hear what your takeout has been from the conversations that we've been having today. So please put your takeout in the chat, even as we wrap up. Just listening to this, my takeaway, and just to lead by example, has been so amazing as we've listened to these three amazing professionals and practitioners in the marketplace, but also EQ expert, HR professional, and customer experience professional. We've had some amazing insights. So would love to hear what your takeaway has been. For me, it was Mucha's statement: moms help boys to build emotional vocabulary by naming it you take it. And for me, that was so powerful, Mucha, because I am currently in a space where I'm leading. I'm leading in a space where most of my community is single moms, and among the questions they're always asking, how do we mother boys effectively and help them to thrive in society? The other one was model vulnerability as a strength and not a weakness, because I think that's something that needs to be inculcated in our culture, in our society, modeling vulnerability as a strength. And then the last one was intentionally checking in with yourself. I think one I'll add there just for me is the 5-minute something audit. Oh, mine's disappeared.
Control audit.
Yes.
Control audit. I wrote it
Control
down and I
audit.
couldn't figure out what I wrote down. The 5-minute control audit. That's a powerful one that I'm also going to be taking away. And I can see some Charles and Susan. Thank you so much for the engagement on the chat. You guys have really kept the chat alive, and of course, everyone that has given their insights. Wanjiro Thoko says that was very enlightening. Give us more of the same. Mom to 3 boys, and I totally relate. Oh, thank you so much, Wanjiro, for that insight. And Tombi says, excellent conversation. I just as that name left my mouth, I'm like, I've said it wrongly. I know I have, but thank you. Excellent conversation. Tombi. And then Wildest Dreams Inc. Takeaway is disrupt what we define as strong, capable, and in control. This has been really amazing. As we wrap up, I want to appreciate my panelists, Peter, Odhiambo, Okoth, Mucha, Mlingo, and Wycliffe Osoro. You have been an amazing panel today. Your insights have been so life transforming. I have been helped even as I've been hosting today. And thank you so much for participating in today's Lunch and Learn. It's been very inspirational. Upcoming events, we'll be having Mental Health Reset Workbook launch on the 30th of June. You do not want to miss that. We'll have the Mental Health Reset Workbook launch on the 30th of June. And we really invite you to pay attention to that. It's a workbook that, let me not spoil it, but look out for it. As we close, this conversation reminds us that true strength is not found in silence, but in the courage to acknowledge our emotions. Ask for support and create space for honest conversations. Through the lens of emotional intelligence, we've explored how social expectations, workplace culture, and personal beliefs can actually shape men's mental well-being, and indeed the mental well-being of our society. We've also learned how psychological safety enables people to show up authentically without fear of judgment. At the same time, we have seen that breaking the silence is a shared responsibility. When leaders, colleagues, friends, and family foster empathy and active listening and supportive environments, they create the conditions for healthier individuals and stronger workplaces. Ultimately, supporting men's mental well-being is not about but about making it safe to start the conversation. Thank you all for joining episode 55 of EQ Lunch and Learn. We appreciate your presence, your engagement, your commitment to the session, and your continued support. Make note and look out for the next episode next month, as we'll be having further conversations. Also, continue to let us know what topic you'd love us to cover in future sessions. Otherwise, this is David O. Sijenyi signing